Hey everyone, this is Jason Berg, Project Manager at WDDinc, and I'm here with Scott Jones.
Hi everyone.
To take a look at SQL Reporting. We're going to look at one report that we developed for MPCA, one of our clients in particular, but we're just going to look at the design of the report, how it's put together. We're not going to actually run any of these because they all have some pretty proprietary data. You met Scott in another one of our videos for FCFCU, so I think we'll just jump right into the technology here and have Scott show us what we got. So what are we looking at here, Scott?
Right now we're looking at the Microsoft Business Development Studio. Business Intelligence Development Studio, and that is an interface that allows you to create SQL reports with, as you can see on the screen here, user interface that's friendly and intuitive and easy to navigate.
Okay, so can you walk us through how, with this particular report, one would go about building something like this?
Sure. A good thing about developing reports is the visual interface, as I mentioned before, and a good thing about it is it's a lot like building tables in Microsoft Word or Excel. If you're used to that, then this is going to be kind of like Microsoft Word, where we have different fields here, different things, and these would be, for instance, text boxes that we were going to put fields in to display from a database. And that's the goal of reporting, is that you want to run automated reports on a database, kind of like a mail merge in Word, where you have a form like this and you want to put certain data from the database into it. And that's really the goal of SQL reporting, is to allow the customer to get information in a report form from the database to send to customers. For instance, this is an invoice. So when you have an invoice, they want to be able to run an invoice report for certain customers based on a criteria they define. They don't want to have to go in and export the data to, let's say, Microsoft Excel, and then from there do a mail merge in Word.
Right.
They want to do it in one step from their database, which is very, this gives you that capability.
And so this particular client runs on Microsoft Dynamics, right? CRM?
Yes, Microsoft Dynamics.
Which has a SQL Server backend, which lets us leverage this SQL reporting to do that. So what we're looking at here is the design, and you're putting these. Can you talk a little bit about what these placeholder fields are? Are they how they link back to the database? Do we have queries behind the scenes? What's going on?
Right. Okay. The first thing, and we'll just start on the left-hand side here with parameters. Now, the parameters are things that you define for them that's going to give them the information they want, and this is going to be used. All of this is going to be used in a query, a SQL query. So one thing about reports is, when you're developing them, is if you know SQL, then you're going to be right at home, because you have to really know SQL well. And what also you're going to do is you're going to define data source. And the data source, in this case, you're right, it is SQL Server 2008, but it could be Oracle, it could be another data source. So it doesn't have to be just SQL Server. But the beauty about this is, since it's SQL Server, it integrates with the rest of Microsoft's products.
Got it.
And then you have a data set based on the data source. Now the data set, when you define a query and you get the fields back you want, those fields are going to be defined here in a data set. And as you can see here, we only have one data set, but for instance, you might want to have, instead of a parameter, that parameter, let me just double click on it, that parameter can be defined by a query. So you could define a new query that will give you the parameters you need to run this. So let's say you want to run a report on a meeting you're going to have, or some convention that's going to be in town.
Right.
You could have different inputs with a drop-down box with this, and then if you had that, then what you would have over here, instead of just one data set, you would have multiple data sets.
Oh, okay. So it allows the user at runtime to filter the data, customize what they're seeing.
Yes, exactly. And then they can.
So when we're looking for here, we show account invoice here. Then they're basically just picking an account number, and then it runs an invoice against that. And so that's why there's only one, because there's only one input field. I understand.
Correct. And then you're going to have multiple fields. Now all of these fields are going to correspond to fields over here.
Oh, okay.
And what you have also is you have a different text boxes in a table. For instance, this is the table. Whereas if you want, for instance, being an invoice, you might have multiple items.
Right.
And this is a table that defines those kinds of things. So you can have the headers here, quantity order, quantity shipped. So you might have 5 or 10 or 100 different items for the invoice, but each one of these fields here in this table, it's going to repeat those for you down the page.
Oh, okay.
So you do one query, but it's going to get multiple result sets, and it's going to put those together to where it gives you all of the in this case it's an invoice number that all of these are going to be categorized under the invoice number.
Okay, so it saves you from having to repeat the same
Yes.
data over and over and over. It'll just
Right.
automatically make new rows
Right.
as it goes.
Exactly. And then at the bottom here, you can see we have our totals.
Uh-huh.
And if you'll notice, there's a thing called expression, EXPR. And instead of, for instance, freight
Yeah,
amount.
when you highlighted that, it looked like an Excel formula.
Yes, exactly. And when you double click it, it'll show you what the expression is going to be. If you click on the function here, it shows you what it's going to be. This is going to be a sum of all of these extended amounts, which in this case is like a line item amount.
Yeah.
From this data source, which you'll notice is
Ties back to the
ties
other
back to
side
that
there.
name
Yeah, very nice.
And then you can also, a great thing about this is you can also do formatting for these based on if you want it to be a number or anything like that. For instance, under number, it's just like Microsoft Excel when you go to format Excels.
Right.
You can have a number, currency. In this case, it is currency. You could have a date, time, any of these formats you want to, and the reporter will make those for you.
And so, if we want to make an extremely rich report, this tool
Yes.
can make a very styled,
Yes.
fancy-looking, whatever you need it. I mean, you basically
Yes.
anything you could do inside of like a Word or an Excel
Yes.
PDF, you can draw here.
Exactly. Some of the examples that we've done for NPCA include not only invoices but reports where you have multiple columns, like you would have mailing labels printed out. So for invoices, they may want a corresponding report that just prints the mailing labels for each of those businesses, and
Oh, okay.
and you can do that also with this using the table feature and some other features in reporting to do the same exact thing. You know, you can print out mailing labels just like you can in Word.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, thank you, Scott. We really appreciate you walking through reporting services here with SQL and walking us through this report and teaching us how it works. Really appreciate it. So
You're welcome. Thank you.
have a good one, everybody. Talk to you later.